You know, back in the days of the Industrial Revolution and the development of machinery and tools and farm implements, there was a huge demand for a profession called a pattern maker. Now, a pattern maker was a guy who would fabricate out of wood, usually something like sugar pine, an exact replica of the part that was going to be cast out of steel, cast iron. And what they would do is they'd make this exact part and they would put it into a sand mold. And they'd have a top and the bottom. And they'd separate the two. They'd pull out their pattern and then they would pour the casting part in there. And it was a big, big business. I mean, a demand for quality pattern makers was huge. Well, back in 1891, a guy by the name of Emmert developed a vise that was so multifunctional. It would tilt and twist and turn that made it so much easier for the pattern maker to manipulate the piece that he was carving or working on that it became very, very popular. Now, I've known about this vise for a long time and I've always wanted one, and recently my regular woodworking vise broke. So I thought, aha, it's time to get an Emmert vise. But a true Emmert vise is quite costly. They're going to cost you $800 to $1,000, and quite often all the parts aren't there. And, they could be old and worn. So there's a company in Taiwan that's making a reproduction of an Emmert vise. They're using almost identical style. So it is a very accurate, very well put together vise. So I purchased one, so I want to show it to you. If you're in the market for a new vise or want to improve your abilities as a carver, I highly recommend this. Well, I bought a reproduction Emmert vise. There's the components of it. Came in a box. And this is my challenge here. I've got to cut out a spot for this, and it's got to have clearance on the bottom because the Emmert vise is a rotatable pattern maker's vise. It's one of the best vices in the world, but they don't make them anymore. So this company, it's a Taiwanese reproduction, but I read all the reviews on it. Everybody says they really like it. So this has been quite a challenge to me because my workbench here is an old bowling alley. If you understand old bowling alleys, they've got lots and lots of metal in them. So I was able to use my router to bring it down here. I did it in a couple of passes because the top piece bolts on here and it's actually a hinge. And when it goes under, it's got to fit up underneath this area. I did go just a hair too deep, so I'm putting a little bit of a spacer on there. I'll be drilling through that, so it doesn't really matter. It's a lot harder than I thought it would be, but a big part of the problem is my bench. They say that do not buy one of these if your bench thickness is not at least 1.5 inches. And frankly, because you got to go down to this depth, you've only got about 1/2 inch there. So my bench is 2 1/4. So I would say bare bones minimum of 2-inch thickness, but preferably 2.5. But the thicker the bench, the more under carving you've got to do. So I've been using chisels and gouges and putting it up there and piecing it, and I'm close. I'm really, really close. So anyway, I'll show you what it looks like when I get it mounted. All right, I got the first component of this vise in place. Like I said, I had to cut out a little indent. I had to go a little bit deeper than I wanted to because this part right here has got to go up underneath. And if I left it level up there, then I would have had to go up quite a bit higher on it. And as it is, I've got it so this is really close to level to the workbench. This is a lot more work than I expected. 2 big, deep, heavy-duty screws, a smaller screw, and then 2 screws on the underside to mount this. Now I got to clean up this thing and slide it in and make sure it works. All right, I've got that in place. This vise will rotate every different direction. And you've got the long jaw and you've got a small jaw, so you can flip it all the way upside down and work this thing. Interesting vise. Next thing I got to do is mount this little mechanism right in here, which allows the vise to pull up and down, and then you lock it by pushing this in place. And this one is a cam that allows it to rotate. It's a little stiff right now. Needs a little bit of grease in there. And then you push it forward and it locks in place. Got 4 very sturdy dogs. There we go. Down there pretty stiff. I guess you pop them up, you can do that. I got this little lever over here. Makes it so you can camp this thing. Let's see how far we go. Oh, quite a bit. I like it. So you can clamp tapered legs and such. Not quite sure what that's for. It's got a handle. I got to screw on the other tip there. Lock it all down. Holds really securely. I gotta figure out what that is. That sits a little bit high. And finally, it comes with this little auxiliary jaw that fits in place. You gotta take off this little pin, slide it through, and then screw it back in. And that allows you to use this for steeper tapers, this way or that way. You rotate it and do. This vise is so versatile, and it rotates all the way around so that you can use both the top vise surface or a real small vise surface. This can come up to the top side. It has a little groove in here, which I'm guessing is used for that. Oh, that's what that is. Okay, so that's got to be in there tight, and that's what makes it rotate really well. And just get screw holes if you want to put a wooden face in here, I presume. Then that wouldn't work. I don't quite understand how that works. I guess you can't put a wooden face in there. You can do a temporary one, I guess. And it is done, with the exception of getting this greasy material off of it. I gotta clean it up real good and oil it a little bit and kind of keep working with it. It's got a release mechanism down here which allows it to go up at every different angle, and another release over on this side that allows this to rotate. So the beauty of this is you can put it up any way that you want to. You can use it conventionally. You can use it at an angle. You can tip it up this way if you want to hold something really long. The vise jaws, they angle one way or the other. A little bit more than that. And then you've got that auxiliary piece inside over here that you can stick in there, so it'll allow you to use tapered pieces. It's a solid vise. I did put a leg piece in here to support this because I've got a bit of an overhang. I'm going to build a better one than that. I just wanted to cut it to give it some rigidity, because that's not the problem with the vise, that's the problem of my workbench. But I've got a considerable overhang and the support is back over there. So I think I'm going to do like a permanent, nicer post over on this side. That'll give me a lot more solidness on the whole thing. And these dogs are nice. The dogs pop up, and I can put my, bench dogs in over here. I've got one over this way. And if I move that stuff, then I can plane this direction or plane this direction. I've got a little auxiliary dog down here that comes out that'll support the wood for longer pieces. All in all, I'm pretty happy with it. This is not an Emmert vise, but it emulates everything on an Emmert vise pretty well. The castings are not exact. You can see there's a little bit of separation here, a little bit of a difference on this side. And I worked at it, and it's about as good as I can get it to go together. But the vise action is smooth. It's not a quick release vise, so it takes you a little while, but that's not a big deal. But it's a really, really solid vise. But it goes out quite far. It comes all the way out to here, which gives you some added ability that I didn't have on my other vise. So all in all, it was about $400, and plus shipping came to about $450 on the whole thing. I'm happy with it, very happy. And there it is with all the cosmoline cleaned off of it. This vise is a thing of beauty. I really, really like it. The more I play with it, the more I am in love with this vise. If you can be in love with a vise. This thing it's so great. It goes in every different direction. It rotates. It curves in and out on both sides. And it's a really, really wide spreading vise. I think it goes out to about 16 inches or so, 15 inches. A little bit of rock, but that's to be expected. Yeah, if you've got the money to put out for a good vise, I say get it.